Parenting our children. Our children are probably the most important, expensive commodity to us. It doesn't matter how much we have in life, but the effort invested, the worries, the concerns, all the headspace is really involved and revolved towards our children, their well-being. What is one powerful parenting tip that every parent needs to know about their children and how to best give over the best tool in life to your children? And we may get sidetracked. We may have so many ideas. Is it communication? Is it spending time together? Is it having peace in the home? And there's so much information out there. But there's really one powerful tool that I would like to share with you in this video. And stick around, because towards the end of the video, you will get 2 practical parenting tips. In Parshat Netzavim, we learn the idea of choose life. Choose life. Imagine if we could have only one final conversation with our children before we leave this world. What advice would we give to our children before we leave them forever? Moshe Rabbeinu, the parent of Bnei Israel, of the Jewish people, who was there every step of the way, from slavery to redemption, to the giving of the Torah, to 40 years of wandering, is speaking to his beloved nation one last time. He urgently asks the Jewish nation to always follow the path of Torah, keep the mitzvot, and warns against the danger of sinning. The pasuk says, "Love Hashem with all your heart and all your soul, so you may live." It is written in Devarim 36. Then the Torah continues, "See, I have placed before you today the life and the good, and the death and the evil, and you shall choose life." What does that mean? I'm going to read it one more time. "See, I have placed before you today the life and the good, and the death and the evil, and you shall choose life." What is life? What are we choosing? So the best advice you can give your children is to say to choose life. What does that mean? We're going to explore that concept a little bit. So what is choosing life? We have to explore the idea of powerful parenting. What is powerful parenting? We teach our children about the Torah, and we guide them to follow the mitzvot, the positive commandments. We relay the concept of loving Hashem so our children can feel it in their hearts. We try to dissuade them from doing averot, from sinning, from committing transgressions. We educate them in the ways of teshuvah and repenting. We teach them, we direct them, we forbid them, and we reward them, and we hope only for the best, because we don't always have control over our kids. We know that we ultimately have no control over which direction our children will go. We cannot hold on to them forever, and they will develop minds of their own. A parent fears many things when it comes to their child. What if we watch them as long as we can, and then they act inappropriately behind our backs? What if we forbid them to go to places that they go anyway, secretly? Rab Moshe Feinstein teaches us, explains to us, you shall choose life. The choice of life is not only for the benefit of the one making the choice, but also so that his offspring shall live. This implies that one should choose to live in such a way that one's offspring, one's children, will also be inspired to follow the Torah. So, if a person obeys the commandment half-heartedly, or with an attitude that they are such a burden, his children will naturally be reluctant to obey them as well. But if he carries the mitzvot with joy and with pride, his example will also carry on to his children. There's a very distinguished group of Jewish leaders, and they're all siblings, and they were asked, why is it that so many of you are there to help the Jewish people, to learn Torah, to do mitzvot? You awaken their minds and their hearts to be closer to Hashem. And they were asked this question, and they answered in unison that this is because our parents were so excited to keep the mitzvot that they did. It didn't feel a burden. It was exciting. It was an adventure. It was an experience. So this is what we want to learn from them as well. We want, not necessarily maybe our children will teach others, but at least they'll be an example, and at least they'll be an example first and foremost to their children. This is our biggest nachat, our biggest pride as parents, as hopefully future grandparents, that we set the path for our children, our grandchildren, that we set the seed, we planted the seed, and hopefully it will lay the foundation of growth, of mitzvot, of Torah. And that is life. Life is following the Torah. So how do we implant loving the Torah and mitzvot to older children versus younger children? This is an incredibly powerful concept. Older children need to know things differently than younger children. Younger children need to be excited about mitzvot. So we talk about the greatness of the mitzvah. We do it with joy. We do it with pride and happiness. But how do we motivate older children to do mitzvot? This is probably 10 years and above. Older children will love to do mitzvot when we show them what happens to them when they don't do mitzvot, when there's consequences and pain in not keeping the mitzvot. And this is eventually going to result in sin and transgressions. We want to show them the pain. It's like when, God forbid, someone is doing drugs. You want to show those juveniles, those young adolescent children, if you do drugs, this is what will happen to you. This is what you will look like. This is where you will probably go. And this is how your life will end up in being. So this is what we want to teach our children. When we do mitzvot, it's exciting. And the older children, this is how you will end up in life when you don't have Torah, when you don't have mitzvot, when you don't have anything to your name, when you don't have mitzvot in your life, you live an empty life. So Moshe Rabbeinu was clarifying that each person has two courses of action in this world, the good and the bad. It is up to one's discretion where to go. Now Hashem is very powerful, but there's one thing Hashem will never do. He's not going to force himself down anybody's throat. He's not going to blast himself in anybody's face saying, you must listen. This is not forcing. A person needs to choose the direction in which they will go. We too need to impress on our children that they themselves will choose the path they wish to follow, and that their selection in life is for their own benefit. Now, my personal idea is, it is a misconception that kids learn when they listen to us. They don't learn when they listen to us, because a child can get to a certain age where they don't want to listen to their parents. They can walk out on their own, when they feel independent, when they feel that they know better. But when they observe us in their house, in our home, in the privacy of our home, this is how they learn. No matter what we lecture, from now until tomorrow, we could lecture them. But if they don't see us actually doing or trying to do the best we can, and trying to impress upon the ideas that we teach. Yes, no parent is perfect, but the child learns that even if the parent isn't perfect, that the parent is trying, the parent is overcoming, and the parent is achieving and improving. So it's not about perfection, it's about really taking into account that we are being observed by our children. This is the biggest lesson we can give our kids, is how am I a role model to my kids? And we need to constantly ask ourselves, how can I be a better role model onto my children? How can I improve? How can I be more? Our sages teach us that children learn and observe in the way we live by sitting in our homes. Our sages teach us that. How do we sit in our homes? How do we behave? That is the biggest lesson we can give our children. They analyze and learn best by role models and examples. So whether we lie or not, whether we like it or not, a parent is a child's primary teacher, a primary educator. Sometimes the role models aren't great. Sometimes our parents are not the best role models. But we have to understand that we are responsible for our life. We cannot blame our parents for the way we were brought up. Because if we were brought up differently, we wouldn't be able to accomplish our mission in this world. And unfortunately, children nowadays teach their parents what they should do, what they should have done, how they should have parented. True, maybe the parents could have parented better, but the parenting that I was brought up with, and every one of us was brought up with, is perfect for us, for our neshama, for our mission, for our soul. Because if it was anything different, we wouldn't been able to take the path that we took, receive the tools that we took, and responded to circumstances in our life with those same, with that same backdrop. So, for example, you can, unfortunately, this is the case many times, but you can have parents that are both alcoholics, God forbid, and they have 5 children, let's say, and after, the children grow up, obviously the children are all affected in different ways by these parents. One child can say, I want to be a therapist. I want to help people who are going through alcoholism. One can say, I want to be a psychologist. One can become an owner of a clinic. One can become very religious, and one can actually become an alcoholic themselves. So it really depends on how you respond to your circumstances. And a person can't say, oh, my parents brought me up this way. This is the way I grew up. No. Hashem is going to ask us after 120 years when we leave this world, why did you stay this way? But I gave you all these other resources. I gave you all these people who can help you, all these different ventures you could have taken, and you decided to think this is your circumstance. You decided to live in resentment and anger and blame your parents. So this is the choice we can make. And we don't want our children to blame us for the way we brought them up, because we're only doing the best that we can. So that's exactly how we should treat our parents. They did the best that they could, and take the next best step forward and be responsible for the way we parent. So important. So I'm going to leave you with 2 practical tips. Number 1 is always at the table, always when you're around your children, try your best, at least once a week on Shabbat, to say how one mitzvah made you happy this week. Maybe you gave charity. Maybe you made shopping for the family. Maybe you cleaned when you were so exhausted, and your spouse was so happy that you left a clean kitchen, or the dishes were empty, all washed. You want to talk about a mitzvah, maybe how you restrained yourself, something that you did that made you so happy, that gave you so much gratification. And that's what kids need to see. I have a friend of mine who was sitting at home as a young girl, and all of a sudden her father, who's actually a rabbi, stormed into the house so excited, asked where's his wife, where's mommy, because he wanted to share a certain wise thought from the Torah, some divrei Torah. He wanted to share some because he was so excited, and that's what she remembers. And she's married, she has kids, she's ready to marry them off, and that's what she remembered from her parents. So we want to make sure, the practical tip number 1 is to talk about on a consistent basis how a certain mitzvah you did gave you so much happiness. Number 2, when we see that we have less control over our kids, especially when they become teenagers, when they become older, they leave the house, we don't know who they're with, what they're doing, we want to assure ourselves that we're doing the best we can, that they're in good hands. And also we want to pray harder. Pray harder. Ask Hashem to guide them, to protect them, to make sure they're on the right path, for them to have good influences, because we are not in control. And the older we get, our body shows us physically, hey, at one point I'm going to give up on you. This is the reality of life. We are really not in control. And that's where emunah, faith in Hashem, and bitachon, unwavering faith in Hashem, really kicks in, that we really have no control in our life. And it shows us in parenting. Just like we relate to Hashem, our kids relate this to us. My emunah needs to kick in, that I do not control my kids, that I can only pray for them. So if you see your child doing something that you don't want them to do, and you've tried your best to influence them in the right way, and they're still, doing whatever they're doing, and you're not in favor of it 100%, pray harder, because Hashem is on your side, and Hashem will help you. You're not in alone. Appreciating the insights of the book, Parsha in Pink by Rebbetzin Bodner Lankry, Leah Abramov, Being and Becoming, Awakening Awareness of Your Greatness and Potential.